Okay, so let's dive into what some scientists are calling like the wildest mystery in biology.
Oh, yeah. Which one's that?
It's this whole question of why the biggest animals out there, whales, elephants,
Hmm.
why don't they get cancer nearly as much as, well, as we do?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Peto's paradox.
Oh,
Yeah, it's fascinating because, I mean, think about the size difference. These are just enormous creatures.
exactly. Their cell counts are just astronomically higher than ours. It really messes with our basic understanding of how cancer even works.
Well, yeah, because your first thought, your gut feeling is it should be the complete opposite, right?
Totally.
More cells living way longer.
Yeah.
Surely that equals more chances for a cell to go rogue, for cancer to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
But the data just, it doesn't show that at all for these big guys.
It's so weird. So maybe just a quick rundown for everyone on like what cancer is at a basic level.
Good idea. So imagine your body is this incredibly busy city, like maybe
Oh.
40 trillion cells all working together.
Right, a massive metropolis. Each cell has its job, keeps things running.
And they have a life cycle. They grow, they divide, make copies for repairs or growth, and then eventually they're supposed to stop or uh, self-destruct, apoptosis.
Yeah, it's all very controlled. Or it's supposed to be.
Exactly. That balance is crucial.
But the problems start when cells divide, right? Making copies of DNA isn't always perfect.
Right. Tiny errors can creep in, like smudged letters on a photocopy. Usually there are repair crews, mechanisms to fix these little mistakes.
And if the damage is too bad.
And there's supposed to be a self-destruct button the cell pushes. Game over for that faulty cell.
Okay, so cancer is when that system breaks down.
That's the heart of it, yeah.
Yeah.
If that self-destruct button is broken in a cell that also has these errors, well, that cell can just start dividing like crazy. It ignores all the stop signals,
Becomes a rogue cell.
pretty much. And they cause all sorts of trouble. They steal resources, crowd out healthy cells, mess up how organs work.
And they can spread, right? Metastasize. That's the really dangerous part.
Absolutely. It's like finding a single bad apple in a massive orchard is tough enough, but then it starts spoiling the ones next to it.
And our main strategy really is finding those bad apples super early and just cutting them out.
Yeah. Surgery, early detection, that's still paramount.
Which brings us right back to the puzzle. The sheer numbers. A mouse, what, has like 1/3000th of our cells?
Something like that, yeah. Tiny fraction.
And a blue whale has maybe 3,000 times more cells than a human. It's just mind-boggling.
And think lifespans. A mouse lives maybe, what, 2 years? Some whales can live 160 years, maybe more.
So shouldn't those whales and elephants just be absolute cancer magnets? Logically.
You'd absolutely think so.
No.
So many more cell divisions over such a long time, way more chances for those DNA typos, for the safeguards to fail somewhere along the line.
And they're not. And that's the really, really weird part.
Exactly. Despite having, trillions upon trillions more cells and living decades longer, big animals like whales and elephants get cancer less often than mice, and even less often than us humans.
It's completely upside down. And that observation, that's Peto's paradox, right? Named after Richard Peto.
That's the one. He pointed out this massive inconsistency. It just challenges everything we thought we knew, our basic assumptions about cancer risk scaling with size and age.
It's like these giants have some kind of superpower, built-in shield.
Right. So the huge question becomes, what is it? What's their secret? What's the secret sauce protecting them?
Okay, so what are the leading theories? What's the science saying?
Well, one of the big ones is about their genes. Basically, they seem to have, let's call it, significantly more genetic firepower against cancer.
More firepower, like better defenses written into their DNA.
Exactly. Take elephants. They have something like 20 copies of a really important tumor-suppressor gene called TP53.
20 copies, wow. And humans, mice.
We typically have one copy, mice too, generally one functional copy of their equivalent. So elephants are packing way more heat, genetically speaking. And the thinking is whales probably have something similar, maybe different genes, but extra defenses.
Okay, and these TP53 genes, they're like, what, security guards for the cells?
That's a great analogy. Yeah, they're like elite security guards. They patrol the DNA, spot errors, and if they find damage, they can either halt the cell cycle to allow for repairs, or if it's too bad, they trigger that self-destruct sequence we talked about.
Ah, apoptosis. So more guards means better surveillance, faster response to potential problems.
Precisely. More guards, more chances to catch a rogue cell before it gets out of control.
And this makes sense from an evolution standpoint, right? Like, if giant animals didn't evolve these extra protections, cancer would have been a much bigger problem for their survival over millions of years.
Absolutely. Natural selection would strongly favor any individuals that develop better cancer resistance. So over time, these cancer-crushing genes, as you called them, would become common in species like whales and elephants.
Is there experimental proof for this?
There is, actually. Scientists have done experiments where they put extra copies of the elephant TP53 gene into mice.
And what happened?
Those mice showed significantly better resistance to developing cancer compared to normal mice. It strongly suggests these extra genes really do make a difference.
Wow. Okay, so why don't we just give ourselves extra TP53 genes? Problem solved.
Ah, if only it were that simple. There's always a catch, isn't there?
Usually is in biology.
Yeah. These genes, they likely do other things in the body, too. We don't fully understand all the potential side effects or interactions of just sticking extra copies into humans. It could have unintended consequences.
All right, complex systems messing with one part can affect others in unexpected ways.
Exactly. So it's definitely a super promising area of research, a great starting point, but we're not at the stage of human gene therapy based on this just yet. Lots more work to do.
Okay, so enhanced genes are one major factor. What else could be helping them?
Another really interesting idea is about their pace of life. Big animals tend to live life, well, in the slow lane, metabolically speaking.
Slower pace of life. How does that connect to cancer?
Think about cell division again. Smaller animals, like mice, live fast, die young. Their cells divide much more rapidly.
Right, constantly turning over.
Whereas in big animals, things are generally slower. Slower metabolism, slower heart rate, and likely slower rates of cell division overall in many tissues.
Okay, so slower division means?
Fewer chances for errors. Think about it like typing. If you're typing incredibly fast, you're probably going to make more typos, right?
Makes sense.
But if you type slowly and carefully, you'll likely make fewer mistakes. Slower cell division could simply mean fewer opportunities for those DNA copying errors to happen in the first place. Less cellular wear and tear overall.
So it's like their cells are just less stressed, less rushed, leading to fewer mutations over their long lives.
That's a key part of the theory, yeah. A slower, steadier process reduces the odds of something going wrong.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense too. What else is on the table?
Well, there's a slightly more, maybe speculative, but really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
The harmless tumor trick.
Harmless tumors? You mean they do get cancer, but it doesn't hurt them?
Sort of, yeah. The thinking is maybe cancer does start in these big animals. Maybe individual cells go rogue just like in other animals. But perhaps their bodies are way better at containing it, like putting up a biological containment field around the tiny early-stage tumor.
Huh. So it forms, but it can't grow or spread effectively.
Possibly. Think about scale again. A tiny tumor, maybe a few millimeters across, that could be deadly in a mouse. In a blue whale, that's almost insignificant. It's a tiny speck.
Right, the sheer size provides a buffer.
It might.
Mm.
Perhaps their systems are better at cutting off the blood supply to these small growths or walling them off with connective tissue, essentially turning potentially dangerous cancers into harmless little bumps like polyps.
So the problem might arise, but it gets neutralized before it becomes a real threat. That's a very different way of looking at resistance.
It is. It shifts the focus from just preventing cancer initiation to potentially managing it incredibly effectively once it starts.
Which kind of leads into maybe a more philosophical angle the research touched on.
Yes. Stepping back to look at cancer through the lens of evolution itself.
Right, the idea that maybe, just maybe, cancer isn't always the bad guy from nature's perspective. That sounds really weird.
It does sound counterintuitive to us because cancer causes so much suffering, but evolution doesn't really care about individual suffering, does it?
No, it's all about survival of the species, passing on genes.
Exactly. So the somewhat controversial thought is, could cancer, in certain contexts, actually serve an evolutionary purpose?
How? Like weeding out weaker individuals?
Potentially. By removing individuals with, say, less stable genomes more prone to accumulating mutations before they reproduce extensively, it might, over the very long term, lead to a healthier, more robust gene pool for the species.
Okay, I can sort of see the cold logic there, especially for animals like mice, short lives, lots of offspring. Losing some to cancer might not impact the species much.
Right. High turnover.
Yeah.
But for whales and elephants, it's totally different. They live long lives, reproduce slowly, invest a ton of energy in each calf.
Losing adults to cancer would be a disaster for the species' survival.
A huge blow. So from this evolutionary viewpoint, Their incredible anti-cancer defenses aren't just a neat trick, they're an absolute necessity. Evolution had to solve the cancer problem for them to even exist as large, long-lived species. It's like evolution saying, okay, you guys get to be huge and live long, but you need these upgrades to stick around.
So maybe cancer isn't just a disease, but also a natural process, like a forest fire, clearing out old wood, that large animals just evolved ways to suppress almost completely.
It's definitely a thought-provoking perspective. It frames cancer not just as a failure of biology, but as a fundamental pressure that has shaped the evolution of life, especially complex multicellular life.
Wow, okay, my head's spinning a bit. Let's bring this back home. What does all this mean for us humans? That's the big question, right?
Absolutely. Can we learn from these giants to help fight cancer in people? That's the ultimate goal of a lot of this research.
So are scientists actively trying to, like, copy the elephant's homework?
In a sophisticated way, yes. They're studying those extra TP53 genes and other anti-cancer mechanisms in whales and elephants, trying to understand exactly how they work so well.
Hoping to find new drug targets.
Exactly. Or develop therapies that could maybe boost our own existing repair systems, or perhaps even find safe ways to mimic the effects of those extra elephant genes without the potential downsides.
What about the other ideas, like the slower cell division?
That's being looked at too. Could we develop treatments that selectively slow down cell division in tissues at high risk of cancer? Or could we enhance our body's ability to do that containment field trick, walling off tiny tumors before they become dangerous?
It feels like Peto's paradox is really shifting the perspective in cancer research.
I think it is. It moves us away from seeing cancer as just this random, inevitable monster, and more towards seeing it as a biological puzzle. A puzzle that, remarkably, nature has already solved in some species.
Which offers a lot more hope, doesn't it?
It really does. Obviously, early detection, current treatments, they're all still incredibly important. We can't lose sight of that.
Sure.
But looking ahead, the dream is that by understanding how whales and elephants resist cancer, we could develop entirely new strategies, truly treatments inspired by these gentle giants.
What an amazing journey, really. From this weird biological mystery, Peto's paradox, to exploring boosted genes, slower life paces, and even the evolutionary role of cancer.
It really underscores how much we still have to learn from the natural world, doesn't it? Evolution's come up with some incredible solutions.
Absolutely. It's just humbling, really, the sheer ingenuity out there.
And the potential it holds for helping us tackle huge challenges like cancer is just immense.
So here's something to chew on for everyone listening. Could cracking Peto's paradox, truly understanding how these animals do it, be the key? Could that be what finally helps us beat cancer?
It's certainly a powerful possibility to consider.
We'd love to hear what you think. Drop us a comment, share your thoughts. Who knows, maybe this deep dive inspires someone out there to become the next big cancer researcher.
That would be fantastic.
Until next time, keep asking those big questions. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.